Welcome to Punchline Talks, the budget. Today I'm joined by Richard Graham, the MP for Gloucester. Richard, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark, and good to be on Punchline.
Well, one of the takeouts for today, we just saw the budget. The Chancellor stood there for just over an hour. I thought it was a pretty impressive display, actually, in the way he came across. Lots of the Tories getting behind him. What are the key points that you pulled out from it, please?
Well, there are lots of different things, as always, Mark, for different groups of people. And I'm guessing for Punchline, we really need to focus on business above all. So I think the biggest single takeaway is really this huge business about capital expensing. And this basically means that, every single pound that businesses invest in the UK is going to be effectively tax deductible. 100% first year relief on new qualifying investments in mainland plant and machinery. That includes everything with IT and computers as well. So that for every pound a company invests, their taxes are cut by up to 25p. So it's worth about 25 billion over the next 3 years. That's the single biggest thing. And of course, although some businesses are very much focused on the fact that corporation tax is going up from 19 to 25%, in reality, according to the Treasury analysis, only about 10% of businesses will really pay that. 70% will pay no increase on current corporation tax, and the rest will be on a sliding scale. So I think that's the big thing. But there's also plenty of other things. Obviously, there's a huge amount of unemployment, which should mean that these roughly 1 million jobs that are available at the moment do have lots of people searching for them soon. That's a mixture of carrot and stick, but of course, the idea is to encourage the roughly 7 million people of employment age in the country who are not really working as much as they could do to do more. And so that business of incentivizing them should mean that businesses in Gloucestershire get more people applying for those jobs available. There's plenty more, obviously, that's specific. Lots of stuff on pubs. So draft beer, for example, will be much cheaper in pubs than it will be in supermarkets. The business on fuel duty itself, so that people traveling around are going to have to pay more for their fuel. That's important. And then there's a lot of other stuff which I think will be very helpful indirectly, like, for example, the complete abolition of the pension cap, which will mean that doctors, consultants, people coming up to retirement will be incentivized to carry on working. And that will apply, I think, more broadly across business in general.
Now, the one takeout for me, obviously, was the fuel duty. You talk about the investment side of things. For small companies, I don't think that will have a big effect. And also, corporation tax wasn't going to affect them anyway. I was very excited about the nuclear side of things as well, and the investment in that. That catch your eye? Do you think there's something there for Berkeley? I know you're very keen on green energy.
Yeah, well, we it's really good news that nuclear is going to be effectively categorized as green investment. That's really good. We would have loved to have had the fusion project come to Berkeley and Albury, but it's going further north. If we can get a small modular reactor pilot project, either in Berkeley or in South Gloucestershire, that would be great. But I think the way in which the government is pushing ahead with nuclear is good for our energy security, good for baseload, good for Gloucestershire, because we got a lot of expertise in the county. So I agree with you on that, Mark. Some of our smaller companies, of course, will benefit from the R&D allowances. I think that's really important. I think you get 35 quid back on every 100 you invest there. And so that's very relevant in the cyber and AI sector, which Gloucestershire leads on.
No, that's very, very exciting. The one bit, or the other bit that really caught my eye was the childcare, because every single business I talk to at the moment, it's all about people. They cannot find the right people for love of money. And this is stifling growth. There is a problem, I feel, though, that wasn't enough incentives to pay the workers more. They're paid terribly in the actual sector for the early years, and obviously, is the government going to be able to do anything there? I know you.
Yeah. No, and that's covered, in fact, because the hourly rates that will get paid to providers of free childcare, that goes up with an extra 204 million, goes up to 288 million in 24-25. So that will support the sector on their increased costs. I think the business of increasing universal credit childcare is really important, so that those who are on the lowest salaries will be incentivized to go back to work. Really important. And then, of course, there's more flexibility for childcare providers, because we're adopting the Scottish approach and saying that we can have a ratio of 1 to 5 if childcare providers want to go there. It's currently 1 to 4 in England. So there's quite a lot for everybody there. And of course, there's also this incentive for childminders. They get a 600 quid sort of welcome to childminding upfront payment, and you get up to 1,200 for childminders who come through an agency. So the idea is to try and resolve the problems at all ends of the equation. And Mark, it's worth remembering that, you know, when the Conservatives came into power in 2010, actually there was no free childcare for 4 and 3 year olds. So now we're trying to take it down to 2 and 1 year olds as well. And of course, it won't be fully rolled out for a while, because it'll take time for all the child minding sector and the schools to respond. But by the end of 24, this will make a massive difference.
Now, the government said that it's committed to £11 billion spend on defence as well over the next 5 years. Are you pleased with that, or is that not enough?
Yeah, well, you know, who knows what's enough? I think in defence, you know, you could pour any number of billions in there. But the key thing is what it's showing is that we're determined, having been the first in Europe to raise the amount of GDP spent on defence to 2%. Now we're taking it to 2.25. And after 2025, we're aiming for 2.5. So it's recognition that we live in a more uncertain world, that we need to be sure that we can defend ourselves and, of course, provide the sort of help we've given Ukraine if need be in an emergency. And I think that's good news. Of course, we do also have quite a lot of defence businesses in Gloucestershire as well.
I was just about to touch on that. Obviously, it's very good for the businesses over here in the avionics industry, which we have, you know, far more than lots of other counties. Last question, actually, Richard, and it's hot off the press, really. There is a kind of run on the banks, it seems, at the moment, obviously spilling over from the American sector. When I say run on the banks, I don't mean run on the banks. I mean, they're getting a bit of a pasting at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is all from the Silicon Valley fallout, really. Credit Suisse is having a bit of a trouble. British banks are also having a bit of trouble as well. What's your take on that? You know, I know someone that, you know, you're very interested in the banking sector yourself.
Yeah.
Are we going to be okay here?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Mark. I mean, I think 3 key things came out of the government's rather brilliant brokering of the HSBC purchase of the assets of SVB UK, because first of all, it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything, which is great news. Secondly, it shows the huge advantage of having the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, and the clue's in the name. That's where they get most of their profits from. But they are the biggest bank in Europe, and with their size of balance sheet, they could easily absorb all the assets and liabilities of SVB Bank. It's less than 1% of their total assets. So that's good news. That you're quite right. The markets have been spooked by this, because they worry about whether this is the beginning of 2008 and the crash of Lehman's happening all over again. It isn't. It's very different. But it was important to make sure there was a solution quickly, because we don't want tech businesses to go under. So I think that's all round good news. And of course, what it does show is that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, you know, working all hours of the weekend with the Bank of England, with HSBC, can get a solution very quickly. And I think that shows real resolve. And that's, I think, the great mark of this PM, is he likes to tackle difficult problems and get them sorted.
Richard, that's all we've got time for. You know, thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks today. I'm sure
Brilliant.
We'll very soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.